Even now with the trucks that were bought, we're only doing 60% of our own cargo. We're not trying to take anybody out of the market. These trucks we launched, we didn't stop anybody from his work. You are saying that there will be lots of jobs. Are our own tankers going to be driven by robots? There are no robotic trucks now. There are trucks that, yes, and by the time you take a workshop manager, mechanical, electrical, okay, people who look after tires, people who look at logistics, movement of the truck, dispatch, back office. Every truck is about 6 people. So these 4,000 trucks they are fighting over, it will create 24,000 jobs. And let me give you also another good news. What we are saying is that our salary is almost 3 times or 4 times their own. I mean, our own, you know, after 5 years, free accident, nothing, a driver can apply. Since we are driving hazardous goods, you can apply and get a housing loan. Our drivers earn more than graduates. If you look at what they earn in a month, it's almost 4 times minimum wage. And you are saying that, no, don't create jobs. If you look at it, that's why I said that my people, when you got here, I'm sure my people took you around and show you some of the trucks. And please go and ask anybody. I don't want to tell you, but go and ask everybody. It's not every truck that you can load here. You know, with just a spark from the silencer, the whole place can catch fire. But see, some of them, when they come, we have to manage because we actually don't have trucks. And I can show you, by the time we load Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, you see the volume will crash because the trucks are not there. They are talking about 30,000 tankers. It is bullshit. Excuse my language. It's not true. Nobody has 30,000. 30,000 where? For where? How? What do they carry? So to actually, ask all these things and say, no, you know what? Let's make even life easy. Okay, because the question of you joining a union, if you look at the Act, I think it was Section 12, subsection 4 also, it said that it's voluntarily. You have to volunteer to join a union. Even religion is voluntary now. I can't force you to be a Muslim if you are a Christian. You cannot force me to change my religion. I will choose. And if I think I'm doing the wrong thing, tomorrow I will decide I'll move and change to another one. So it is not a question. Nobody will lose any job. And if they have that issue, any of their driver, because the fight is over driver, any of their drivers who doesn't have a job and he wants to join these people to earn more money, he is welcome. It's not true. There's nobody who has lost his job. We have actually launched 3,000, about 980 or so of the bulk cargo. And it took us even time to even have drivers. Drivers now are very difficult to get. And we are not the only ones buying trucks. People are buying trucks. And we have training school where, yes, because safety is number 1 to us. Because every truck is how much? You think every truck costs about 170 to 190 million, depending on even Chinese one. Yes, about 175 to 190 million, depending on what you have in it. So you cannot just now go, because what we have invested, actually, we've invested almost to the tune of 2 trillion naira in terms of trucking. How can somebody now just come and say, no, don't operate, park? Where and how? Nobody will lose his job. We are creating more jobs. We are looking for people now. If you have anybody, please introduce. We are employing drivers. We are employing mechanics. No, it's true. We have now a total of almost 40 or 50 Chinese only to stay here for 3 months and train Nigerians to be able to service this because we can't afford foreigners. But local, they can. You see, these trucks that we have, they are like Peugeot. You know, Peugeot, that's why Peugeot was very, very good, was rugged. Any village that you go, when you have a problem, the mechanic in that village can repair it. So that's what these ones are. They don't need much of training. So forget about all this one, saying somebody will do. Which job is somebody going to? We are creating 24,000 jobs, minimum. And it's not that we will stop at this one now. Next phase of our this thing, from January, we are looking at even electric vehicles. Yes, so it's not a question of, this is, so when we now just come, you want to tell me that, no, keep using these old trucks, and now if there's an accident, may God forbid, you want to come and say, well, sorry. We have to safeguard our own investment. And somebody can even intentionally bring a bad truck to come now and, if we have an accident, at least that can slow us down. We don't want that situation to happen. Really, sometimes it pains me when I go to the local airport, whether it's here or Lagos. You see that to even find a parking of your plane is impossible. Everybody has a private jet. Those private jets should be in industries so that we can create jobs. Because today, luckily, some people maybe they don't know the position of the country as we speak, because population growth is 8.7 million babies every year. So 8.7 million babies every year, we have to be in a lot of things. We have to deliver power, we have to deliver infrastructure, we have to deliver this. That's why a company like ours, really, we are never really, if you look at all companies, the taxes that we're paying is high. We don't mind.
Aliko Dangote doesn't just make cement, he builds futures. An argument. Whether you see him as Nigeria's industrial champion or as an overpowerful private giant, one thing is clear. Dangote is shaping the country's economy more decisively than many ministers ever have. Here is a long, hard look at what he has done, what he is trying to do now, the storm he is in the middle of, and why the battle matters for every Nigerian. From cement yards to nation building, the scale of his economic role is clear. Aliko Dangote's rise from a regional trader to the head of a Pan-African industrial empire has left an imprint on Nigeria's economy that is hard to overstate. Dangote Group operates across cement, sugar, salt, flour, and most disruptively in energy with the Dangote refinery, a single-site refinery built to cut Nigeria's dependence on imported petrol and to turn Nigeria into a net exporter of refined products. The refinery alone, built at enormous cost and scale, has altered supply dynamics, attracted foreign capital, and helped stabilize certain foreign exchange flows. Put simply, when Dangote moves, markets and policymakers notice. His project creates thousands of direct jobs, many more indirect jobs in supply chains, and huge tax and foreign exchange footprints. For a country where industrialization has often been more promise than practice, Dangote's private sector factory floor is one of the few large, durable examples of heavy manufacturing happening at large scale on Nigerian soil. One word to describe him is empowerment in practice. Philanthropy, jobs, and big bets on education. Beyond private industry, Dangote has lent into large philanthropic and social programs that target health, education, and small business support. The Aliko Dangote Foundation runs women's micro grants, programs, health interventions, and community development projects across several Nigerian states. In December 2025, the foundation announced a headline education initiative, a multi-year, multi-hundred billion naira commitment to widen access to schooling and reduce financial barriers for millions of students, and signaling a willingness to deploy private wealth at national scale.
100 billion annual education support initiative, which will actually cost us about 1 trillion naira over the next 10 years, but also to be reviewed on the fifth year. Beginning in January 2026, this initiative will...
These interventions have real, traceable impact in communities that receive them. That combination of industrial jobs plus targeted social spending is why many Nigerians and business groups hail Dangote as a de facto development partner. For regions that have seen inconsistent government delivery, private largesse can translate into visible change. Schools are renovated, scholarships are awarded, and small businesses are financed. It is also the reason why Dangote's moves are politically potent. The man isn't just rich, he's influential in how that wealth is deployed publicly. And this might be one of the reasons for the current clash with regulator, corruption claims, and a fight over who set the rules. What's driving the latest headlines is an escalating dispute between Dangote and Nigeria's mainstream regulators. Dangote has publicly accused the Nigerian Mainstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority (NMDPRA) of allowing cheap fuel imports that undermine domestic refining, and has also alleged conduct that warrants anti-corruption scrutiny. He has filed complaints and pushed for investigations, arguing that policy and enforcement should prioritize local refineries to secure jobs, foreign exchange savings, and energy sovereignty.
Nigeria is supposed to be the refining hub of not even West Africa, of the sub-Saharan African region. You know, we have the crude and we have the refineries. If our own, continues to work, you have the NNPC's refinery. So our own and NNPC is over 1 million tons. 1 million tons can feed the entire West Africa and Central Africa. So, and I don't know why, we should continue to allow, some corrupt government officials to try and destroy a whole sector of the economy. And I think it is something that when you look at it, I've had actually people making complaint about a regulator who has actually put his children in secondary school, and that secondary school education, which is 6 years, 4 of them cost Nigeria $5 million. You cannot imagine somebody paying $5 million for educating 5 children. Even my own children, they didn't go to those schools. My children went to Nigerian secondary school. They didn't go outside Nigeria to attend to secondary school. I don't know about your children, Tony, but mine, yes. So, and this is a system that, some of us, because you know what, we're taxpayers. When people are complaining, we also complain, because the issue is that, yes, when I pay tax, I want to see that my money is being put to use, not to be stolen. But today, as we speak, the S, I don't know what is the, that is the authority chief executive, Malam Farouk. Malam Farouk has 4 of his children that he educated in Switzerland at the cost of $5 million for their secondary school education alone, not university. And I know that one of them just finished Harvard. So I want to now see what kind of system are we operating that, people are now busy destroying a country, taking money from the government, because when you look at his income does not match paying this kind of fees. I think even if it's me paying $5 million for 6 years for my 4 children, the taxman has to look at my taxes, how much I paid. And really, this sort of thing, we're not going to allow it to continue. We'll take it up to the highest authority so that they will look at it. You know, people who have done something wrong must be prosecuted. It must be prosecuted, because there is actually no way where somebody will now come. I mean, today, from where he comes from, Sokoto, people are struggling to pay 100,000 naira for school fees of secondary school. And a lot of children are at home, not going to school because of 100,000 naira. Tony, can you pay this fee?
Why, Tony?
No, I'm asking now whether can you?
I can't.
Okay, so if you cannot afford, I cannot understand why somebody who has worked all his life in government and he has 4 children that he has paid $5 million. I've seen that people have taken this post and nobody is listening to them. So we will actually join them to make sure that this is done properly. The man must come and explain to Nigerians how he paid $5 million for 6 years of his 4 children's education. And I don't think if any one of you has actually paid that kind of fees for your own, children. So we can't allow this to continue, because we must make sure that people don't come and destroy a country just because they want to make a living that is not genuine, or that is not, legal. Because I mean, for somebody to have this sort of money, he must be supported by people. He should come out and tell people how did he make $5 million to educate his children in Switzerland with a cost of $5 million. And when these questions are answered before we go to the, uh, you know, to the court, he should come out and reply. This is what we have seen, and I think we must make sure that this system, this what do you call it, this downstream, must not be destroyed by one single person because of personal interest.
That fight has already produced high-profile resignations at regulatory agencies and an intense public debate about policy direction. Why this should matter to Nigeria? Nigeria imports huge volumes of refined fuel despite being a major crude producer, a paradox caused by decades of investment and policy indecision in the state sector. Dangote's refinery was built to fix that. If regulators permit large volumes, cheap imports to inflate the market, it can undercut local refineries, commercial viability, and discourage future industrial investment. Dangote frames his complaint as a defense of industrialization. Critics frame it as a push for privileged rules that benefit one private player. Both sides have leverage and both claims deserve scrutiny. Here comes allegations of monopoly and his defense. What's the real risk? Critics accuse Dangote of being too dominant in key markets, pointing to market shares in cement, sugar, and refining that give his firms enormous pricing and supply influence. Those concerns are not purely academic. Concentrated market can hurt consumers if unchecked, reduce incentives for innovation, and make the economy vulnerable to single farm shocks. Dangote's response has been robust. He insists that his operations are lawful, that his money was earned cleanly, and that his investments solve problems like jobs, productivity, and local value addition rather than create them. He also argues against Africa being a dumping ground for cheap foreign products that kill local industries in public appearances and press statements. He has invited scrutiny while defending the legitimacy of his expansion plans and the benefit they bring. A concentration and monopoly risk exists and it deserves regulatory vigilance, but so do the tangible gains from large industrial projects. The right policy response isn't uh, demonization or blanket protectionism. It is transparent enforcement of competition law, smart industrial policy that support fair growth, and mechanisms that open ownership, example public listing and employee share schemes, so that wealth creation is broad-based. But who is opposing him? Political, regulatory, and vested interest. Opposition comes from several camps. For example, competing businesses and importers who benefit from a liberal import regime can oppose it. Regulatory officials and some policymakers who argue for a free market approach or who see Dangote's pressure as political interference are also on the line. Civil society and some economists who worry about market concentration, forest privileges, and the political power concentrated in an unelected billionaire are all pushing against him. Parts of the media and opposition politicians who frame the narrative as Dangote versus Nigeria to score political points. Some of the opposition is principled, like genuine concerns about competition, transparency, and the long-term pluralism of the economy. Some of it is transactional, like actors who are defending markets that serve their short-term interests. The debate is messy because the stakes are both economic and political. Whoever wins this policy fight helps to shape Nigeria's model of development for years. Dangote's role in exposing corruption, is it an anti-corruption crusade or self-defense in the whole of this saga? When a private entrepreneur publicly petitions and anti-corruption agencies to investigate senior regulators, it flips the usual script. Dangote's complaint to agencies, naming officials and pointing to decisions that favor import over local refining, have forced a national conversation about how policy is made and who it benefits. If wrongdoing is found, that's an important win for transparency and the rule of law. If not, the episode still exposes opaque decision making and weak accountability, and it signals that powerful private firms will use legal and political tools to defend their commercial interests. Either way, the episode underscores an uncomfortable truth that in the absence of strong, impartial institutions, private individuals so powerful can cover the fill the vacuum created, sometimes to build and sometimes to protect profiles. The right institutional fix is stronger, independent regulators, public disclosure of procurement and licensing decisions are clear rules that balance competition with individual policy. And what does it portend to Nigeria's future? It portends a test of institutions. How anti-corruption agencies and courts handle these complaints will show whether Nigeria's institutions can hold all actors, both private and public, to account. A transparent probe with published findings would be a systemic win. Industrial policy versus laissez-faire. If policy shift to actively protect and prioritize local volume addition, that is favoring the domestic refineries over import, that could kickstart more local industrial investment, but only if paired with competition safeguards. Political economy of inequality. Concentration of economic power in a few hands remains politically combustible. Without mechanisms that spread ownership and opportunity, resentment and populist backlashes may grow. Dangote's own philanthropy and public education pledges are attempts to mitigate that risk. But philanthropy is not a substitute for broad-based economic inclusion. Market confidence and foreign investment. Clear and consistent regulation attract investors. Policy instability or perception that regulators are politicized will scare off capital, which neither the state nor private sector want. The handling of the Dangote regulator standoff sends signals to international financiers. It is legitimate to be skeptical of concentrated market power, but reflexive hostility, dismissing every private investment as a plot to monopolize, risk throwing away the only large-scale industrial capacity Nigeria currently hosts. We should demand transparency and competition safeguards and encourage large manufacturers to expand and hire equipment and other things. That is not a contradiction. Political grandstanding that uses anti-Dangote sentiment for long-term gain does a disservice to Nigerians. If your answer to concentration is simply to intimidate or block investment, you will shrink the economic pie. Regulatory independence must be protected from capture by both politicians and private sectors. If you oppose Dangote on principle, push for open procedures, publish data on licensing and capacity, and competition investigations, not sensationalism or any narratives, evidence, and not slogans would make Nigeria better. What should happen next for a better economy is policy transparency and participation. Regulators should make fuel import, refinery throughput, and licensing data public and auditable. No more black box numbers. This would calm markets and let independent analysts validate claims. There should be independent probe where needed. If allegations of misconduct exist, investigators should act swiftly and publish findings. The goal is institutional trust, not scoring settlement. Strengthen and enforce competition laws so that big firms can grow but cannot abuse market dominance. Consider measures that promote broader ownership like IPO plans and employee share options. Require or incentivize local content training and community investment as part of large project approvals. Philanthropy helps in building commitment and to create industrial change. Aliko Dangote is a paradox of modern Nigeria, a builder whose factories have materially changed the economy, and an individual whose dominance raises valid questions about power, fairness, and public accountability. The right response to his rise is not to worship him nor to vilify his inflexibility. It is to demand transparency, increase competition and regulators from capture, and make sure that large private investments are paired with policies that spread the gains. If Nigeria gets this right, Dangote's next chapter in expanding refineries, funding education, creating jobs could be the moment the country will shift from resource dependency to industrial possibility. If Nigeria gets it wrong by letting policy to be shaped in opaque rooms or by killing investment with populist attacks, the country will lose both the factories and the chance to build on them. That's the real stake of this fight, not just one individual.